Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what might be the biggest shakeup in virtual reality we've seen in a long time. We're looking at Valve's audacious new Steam frame. People are already calling it the Steam Deck for your face, and it is shaping up to be a direct, head-on challenge to Meta's Quest 3. Look, for years now, the Meta Quest line has basically owned the standalone wire-free VR market. But Valve, well, they're finally stepping out of the tethered PC VR shadows with a headset that promises to completely redefine what mobile VR can actually do.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer scale of their ambition. The goal isn't just to play bite-sized mobile games. No way. It's about natively running actual, heavy-duty PC VR games right there on the headset, without being physically chained to a giant desktop rig. Think of it as a direct portal to your entire Steam library. It's built specifically to cater to those hardcore PC VR players who absolutely demand high fidelity, but, are finally sick and tired of tripping over cables.
To get a real handle on this, our explainer today is broken down into 4 parts. First, what Steam Frame actually is. Second, the game library promise. Third, the honest trade-offs. And finally, we'll ask the big question. Is this a Quest 3 killer?
All right, let's jump right into segment 1. What Steam Frame actually is.
Because, wow, under the hood, this thing is wildly different from anything currently on the market. Valve is basically applying absolute brute hardware force here. They're literally doubling the RAM of the Quest 3, jumping all the way up to 16 gigabytes. And while Meta uses a highly specialized XR mobile chip, Valve is just throwing in a top-of-the-line 8-core Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 smartphone chip. Add to that Valve's own open-source SteamOS, which gives you total administrative control, and it's a stark contrast to Meta's lockdown Horizon OS. So you might be wondering, how do they actually pull off native PC gaming on a mobile smartphone chip? Most Steam games are built for big, power-hungry desktop processors, the x86 architecture. But the Steam Frame uses a mobile ARM processor. To make them talk, Valve relies on real-time emulation layers called Proton and Phoenix. These act like live, real-time translators for the code. It is honestly a technical marvel that carried over from the Steam Deck, essentially tricking your heavy desktop games into thinking they're running on a massive PC rig when they're actually running on a mobile chip strapped to your head.
But look, Valve knows a mobile chip does have its limits, so for players who want to stick to wireless PC VR streaming, they've engineered a brilliant workaround. They actually include a dedicated Wi-Fi 6E dongle right in the box. You plug that straight into your PC, completely bypassing your home router, to create a direct isolated network just for your headset. Combine that with built-in eye tracking, and they use something called foveated streaming. That means it only encodes the maximum video resolution exactly where your pupils are looking. The result? Flawless, ultra-low latency streaming that genuinely feels like a wired connection.
Moving right along to segment 2, the game library promise. Because let's be real, top-tier hardware is nothing without something incredible to play on it. Imagine this giant, historically locked vault of PC VR games suddenly swinging wide open. We're talking masterpieces like Half-Life Alyx, or thousands of incredibly deep simulators and indie hits. Steam Frame's goal is to make that massive SteamVR back catalog accessible on the go. That's a level of gaming history and depth that standalone players, especially Quest-exclusive players, have literally never had access to without dropping thousands on a gaming PC.
And get this, you aren't even limited to just VR. Since it runs SteamOS, the whole thing is an absolute tinkerer's paradise. You can play your regular, flat PC games on a giant virtual feeder screen while chilling in bed. Or, thanks to a compatibility layer called Lipton, you can seamlessly sideload standard Android APKs. The headset doesn't care how you want to play. It just wants to give you access to everything you already own.
Okay, time to put on our analyst hats for segment 3, the honest trade-offs.
You simply cannot strap full-blown PC gaming to your face without the laws of physics stepping in. You have to compromise somewhere. For comfort, the Steam Frame is an absolute revelation. It boasts an insanely light 185-gram front visor by shifting the heavy battery all the way to the back. Compared to the heavy front of the Quest 3, it feels more like wearing ski goggles. But here is the catch. That smaller rear-mounted battery means you might only squeeze out about an hour of intense standalone playtime compared to the Quest 3's 2 hours. Oh, and the price? Valve is targeting just under $1,000, whereas the Quest 3 sits comfortably at $599.
Plus, we have to talk about the software tax. Running those massive PC games via emulation takes a serious physical toll. It generates massive heat and drains that battery incredibly fast. Valve literally has to use game-specific thermal profiles just to keep the headset from melting. On the flip side, Meta's closed ecosystem demands strict native optimization. The Quest 3 has over 3 years of games built from the ground up for a mobile chip. That means perfectly stable frame rates and a frictionless guaranteed experience that real-time emulation just can't always promise.
Also, just a quick spec check here. Both the Quest 3 and the Steam Frame utilize standard 2016 by 2016 LCD display panels. So if you're holding your breath for the deep, inky blacks of a premium micro OLED screen, well, you won't find it on either of these devices. Valve made a very calculated choice to keep costs somewhat in check, focusing instead on their pancake lenses that offer incredible clarity across your whole field of view.
Which brings us to our final showdown in Segment 4. Is Steam Frame a Quest 3 killer?
Honestly, rather than calling it a direct killer, I think we are really looking at two totally different philosophies in the VR space. On one side, we have Valve, the open, PC-centric, hackable dream. They're starting fresh in the standalone space, but they're bringing the entire PC VR back catalog with them. It's modular, you can access the Linux desktop, and it is a streaming powerhouse. On the other side, there's Meta, a heavily subsidized, frictionless, plug-and-play mobile console. Meta has spent years working with studios to build bespoke games that just perfectly work the second you put the headset on.
So, who actually takes the standalone VR crown? Well, it depends entirely on what you value. If you want a massive, unlocked vault of PC games, if you love to tinker, and if you demand flawless wireless streaming from a heavy-duty gaming rig, Valve is clearly your winner. But if you value guaranteed mobile performance, a much lower price point, and highly polished day-one mixed reality experiences, Meta is absolutely still the reigning champ. What is undeniably true, however, is that Steam Frame completely changes the definition of what standalone VR even means. Whether it changes what you ultimately buy is a different question, but we are officially moving away from the era of mobile-only games. We are entering this fascinating hybrid era where you can literally carry your entire PC gaming history on your face. So here is a final thought to leave you with today. If you are already deeply invested in that Quest 3 ecosystem, does this giant unlocked PC vault actually tempt you to switch? Is the promise of foveated streaming and unparalleled comfort enough to make you walk away from Meta's polished exclusives? What exact price tag or killer feature would it take to actually tip the scales for you? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring that virtual horizon.